Hello everyone, I'm Colin Canet. Today I'm going to show you how to make quick, super accurate mortises. For the video today, I'm going to be using this Doweling jig, it's called the Dowel Max, to make super accurate mortises. Now, for those of you who already have a Dowel Max, you're going to be saying, why would you bother to make mortise and tenons when you already have a Doweling jig? And the answer is that some people want to do woodworking the traditional way, which means mortise and tenon. And if you don't have a mortising machine that makes nice, perfectly square holes for you, then this is another option. There's lots of ways of making mortises, and this is just another option to make perfect mortises, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Now, this Doweling jig completely comes apart, and this center part you can see is replaceable by different size holes or different size drill bits. And you can use a quarter. You can see how it's smaller. Most of the time I'm using 3/8, and in this case I have some 5/16 that I'm going to be using to make the mortises with. Now, all of these, when you put them in, what it does makes a perfect alignment for 3/4 of an inch wood, which is what we use most of the time. Now, here is what those dowels look like. And if you look at those, there's the 3/8, there's the 5/16, and there's the quarter. Now, when we're making, very often when we're making mortises, I used to make 1/4 inch, and that's a little bit thin, but it's really easy to make because to make 1/4 inch, I just used to use my measuring bar. You could measure a 1/4 inch on one side, a 1/4 inch on the other, and the 1/4 inch in the middle, of course, that was the part that I would cut out for my mortises. And I typically did that on my drill press and drilled those out. Now, the problem with that, you can see it's a little bit thin. Now, when we're using the Doweling jig and 3/4 inch, we can use 3/8, which is a nice, big, strong, and we don't have to worry about it because we've used glue and it's solid all the way around. But for making mortises, a 3/8 size mortise is a little bit big because there's really not enough room on either side here. It's a little bit thin, and that's where 5/16 is perfect because it gives us enough room on either side and still gives us a fairly good, strong tenon in the middle. Now, the reason we want to have an accurate mortise is because we really want to make, for example, when we're making legs, let's say we've got square legs in here, I've got a couple of aprons in this mock-up, and we really want to have something called a reveal on the side. And a reveal is an area where you can see how the light hits that, and the purpose of a reveal is to give the furniture more of a three-dimensional look to it. And you can see there's a reveal down there and another, so there's one here and one here. Now, getting that accurate, that was my biggest challenge in using my drill press, was trying to get those mortise holes absolutely accurate. And that's where the Dowel Max, the Doweling jig, is perfect at making perfect holes. So here's why I like the Doweling jig, because nobody knows or cares what's in there, and I can drill those holes in a couple of minutes. They're perfectly accurate, and the same on the other side, and put that together with a little bit of glue, and that's super strong, at least as strong as mortise and tenon, but it's quick and easy. But even more than that, it's super accurate. So let me show you what it's like to cut a mortise like this one. So there's a piece of wood that I'm going to use for our mock-up for the leg, and there's my other piece. That will be our apron, and of course I want to make sure that there's a reveal in there. So there's my 3/16 measuring bar, and that's if we look at that, that's a nice reveal in there, something that thick. Now, the way that we do that, I can use this Doweling jig, and it's fully adjustable. I know if you don't have one, I'm not really going to show you how to use it. That's not the point today. The point is to show you that you can use this. It's another option for making accurate mortises. So I've put a couple of shims in there to move this ridge here, move this part out so that I have that reveal in there, because when I make these holes, I want these holes to be offset this way a little bit. So now when I tighten this side up, I have a little bit of an offset, so I've moved this block back a little bit. Now when I drill those holes, I'm just going to drill 3 holes. I think that should work fine. And I've already preset the drill to the proper depth that I want to go, and I just align this jig using my finger so that it's right on the side there. Now usually drilling more than trying to drill holes, let me show you what that looks like. That's basically what we have, is 3 holes here, and usually trying to drill more holes in there, it tends to want to run, but I've done some experimenting, and this jig actually allows me to do this, where I can actually run some extra holes in there, so it'll be a little bit easier for me to drill out. And I'm going to take my time. There, now that's a great start on my mortise, and all I need to do, after I get the sawdust out of there, is start using my chisel, and I'm going to go through now and just clean up those sides, because the ends are already marked. And I'm just going to take a minute now. I'm not going to make you sit through this, where I'm going to take my chisel and just clean up the sides and dig out the chips in there, and when I come back, I should have a pretty decent looking mortise. Now the other thing that you could do using Doweling jig is to square those holes off. You can see that one's a little bit squared off there. That was just because I was a little aggressive on the side. But you can see it's quite round here. Now I'm not going to take the time to square these off, because normally what I would do, and what I've done in the past when I used my drill press to drill holes like this, is I just left them round like that, and I just rounded off the tongue on the tenon, or the top of the tenon rather, to do that. So now I'm going to go over to the table saw, and I'm just going to take a minute and cut a tenon for that. Now, just like making mortises, there's lots of different ways of making tenons. I'm just going to show you the way that I've made them, and that's first of all to score all the shoulders. Now I've raised the blade slightly so that it's just below the undercut here, and I'm only going to be cutting the sides here. So I'm going to take this off and reverse it and keep making some cuts. And I know it's not set up perfectly right now, and I'm going to have to move the fence a little bit until I fit it to make sure that I get the right depth in there. So you can watch that as we go along. Okay, this joint's coming along nicely. You can see that there's a little bit of extra wood I need to take off, so I'm going to chisel that out. But I also need to cut the length of the tenon now, so I'm going to move that there and make a mark down there. So I'm just going to go offline now, and I'm just going to use my saw and cut those off. So I've taken a moment to clean up that tenon, and I had to do a tiny bit of sanding on the side, but you can also see that I rounded over the edges. There's the mortise that we cut on the Doweling jig, and now when we put those together we get a nice tight fit. But what's more important, now we have a consistent reveal, so it doesn't matter what leg you go to, you'll have a consistent reveal. So some aren't going to be thin and some aren't going to be wide, they're all going to be exactly the same, and you get consistent lengths as well because you're working within the Doweling jigs, the holes that they drill. So it's very, very consistent. But look, there's even more. This is really cool. Look at this. So I've cut a mortise here, but look, I also cut a mortise in the top of this. While you weren't looking, I cut a mortise in the top. And now we can use something I call floating tenons. A lot of people call these loose tenons. I don't like that terminology. I hate telling customers that furniture is put together with loose tenons. Floating tenons is a much friendlier phrase. And now you cut those, simple to make. Cut them on your table saw, the right thickness, round them over on your router with a 1/4 round, and now when you put that in like that, you can put those in anywhere, put some glue in them, and you've got another mortise in the top, and now you've got a quick, easy joint, and all you've done is cut mortises, and again, you've got consistent reveals on all of your corners. Just a great system. Well, that concludes my video for today. And for those of you who want to use mortise and tenon joints and get absolutely perfect sized and positioned joints, a Doweling jig is a perfect answer for you. And if you want, you can even use floating tenons in there as well. I'm Colin Cadet for Woodwork Web. Thanks for watching.